I'll share a story about Kol Nidre. It goes back to the days of Rab Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, one of the famous Hasidic masters of prior generations. And these Hasidic masters, they had a way of feeling things in the heavenly world. They sensed things. So if their mood was joyous over the holidays, you kind of got the feeling it's going to be a good year. If their mood was serious, we were not in for such a good year. If they were filled with tears, we had something to worry about. This particular Yom Kippur, Reb Levi Yitzchak was in a very serious mode, which obviously meant serious concern for the people. And he told the cantor, do not begin the Kol Nidre. Don't start. We can't start the year right now. Can't start Yom Kippur service right now. Everyone take out your book of Psalms. Pray like you've never prayed before. Now they realize we have real problems coming. And they take out their book of Psalms and they're crying away, seeing that their Hasidic master, the Berditchev, is intensely crying, who was always joyful, always smiling, but now there's seriousness there, which meant to them there's a decree up above in heaven that this year was not going to be a good year for the Jewish people, and he sensed it. And understand, in that period of time, some years you survived the pogroms and some years you didn't. So if he was intensely saddened, there was reason to be concerned. And at some point, his face changes, and he smiles. And his face is all back to the old Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, and he motions the cantor start the Kol Nidre prayer, and it's lively, and it's singing, and it's clapping. Now, naturally, after prayers are over, they turn to him, fill us in. I mean, what happened here? And he did. And he said that I was able to sense up above in heaven, this was not going to be a good year. Not only did I sense it, but all the Hasidic masters and all the other congregations in this region, we all sensed it. And we all were doing exactly the same thing in our congregations. Intense prayer, hoping to avert the decree. Nothing doing. We couldn't do it. With all of our intense prayers, with everything that we said, with all of your Tehillim, my Tehillim, all the Rebbes around, nothing doing. It was rock solid. It was there. But in another town, there's another story going on. You see, there was a woman who hadn't had a child in many years. And just a month before Rosh Hashanah, she gave birth to a baby boy. And she loved this child. She was the happiest woman in the world. She had this gift of this miracle baby, and she and her husband celebrated every moment together. Comes time for Yom Kippur, and she thinks to herself, how do I get to shul on Yom Kippur? I've never had a child to know how you do this. Any babysitter, they themselves will be in shul for Kol Nidre, so how am I supposed to do this? I've never missed Kol Nidre, but at the same time, I've never had a child, an infant. And she's thinking this through. Her husband already went off to shul, and she's there saying, I can't miss Kol Nidre. I can't miss Kol Nidre. So she thinks to herself, I know my baby's schedule, and it's pretty accurate each and every single day. After I nurse my child and I put my child to sleep, there's usually a good 2 hours. So let me make the calculation. I'll nurse the child, put the child to sleep, race to the shul for Kol Nidre, do the Kol Nidre prayer, I'll make it back. No one will ever know I left my child alone. My child will have slept through it. It'll all be good. Child will be fine. I did my Kol Nidre. So that's what I did. That's what this woman did. This is the story Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev is telling over. She went to shul, and before she can even begin to say the Kol Nidre prayer, she said, what am I doing? As an infant child, left all alone. How can I do such a thing? What am I, mad? Am I nuts? What happens if the child wakes up? What happens if he's crying? What happens if he's intensely crying and he rolls out of the crib and he fell on the floor, and she starts building all the scenarios? Oh my goodness, my child is on the floor, my child is crying. And she races out of the shul, and she races home expecting the very worst. What kind of mother am I to leave an infant child crying hysterically on the floor? And she comes into the house, she comes into the room of her child, and her child is sleeping beautifully. And she begins to cry. And she says, God Almighty, this is the first year I'm not in shul for Kol Nidre. So I'll offer my own prayers. May God love his children as much as I love my child. And may God have nachas from his children as I have nachas from my own. Said Reb Levi Yitzchak, when this simple woman said that simple prayer to God, boom, the decree was lifted. All the prayers of the holy masters couldn't do it. Simple prayer from a mother expressing her love for her child and asking God, do you love your children like I love mine? And that brought that year to be filled with blessings.